Okay, thank you all for being here with us. We really appreciate it. We have a special webinar at a special time, and we know your time's valuable, and we just really appreciate you taking the time to be on with us. We've got some great updates that we have for you in regards to the search algorithms, some exciting product updates that are coming up, and we are going to get this going here in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to just go over some housekeeping really quick before we get started, and I'm continuing to add in some people as we go too. This is a recorded session, and so we do ask if you could please keep your line muted so we don't have any distractions or background noises. We will have some questions and answers at the end. I know many of you pre-submitted questions that we were able to go through and consolidate and build into the presentation itself, as well as outline of some of those questions at the end. There's a lot of commonalities with the questions, so we were able to consolidate a lot. We have a good idea of what it is that you guys are, the information you're hoping to get today. If throughout the webinar you find that you have additional questions, need additional clarifications, please go ahead and put those in the chat here of the Zoom. And then I'll go ahead and be kind of sorting through those as we go. I'm going to ask everyone to please mute their line.
Late fee and interest when I've paid my bill off entirely on the 3rd of October.
You should be able to mute manually.
C-A.
Okay, I'm getting people added in here too. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we have everyone muted now. Okay, and so as I was saying, if you could please, why is this not muting everybody here?
Do you say anything, Amanda?
If you go to the pan on your right, Shannon, where you have all the photos of everybody, when you can scroll through, if you go to someone unmuted, you can click the 3 dots on the top right. It should allow you to mute from there, I believe.
It is, it looks like I'm trying to see who's not. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Bear with us here for a minute. We make sure we have everyone muted. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And so as we're going along in the webinar, if you do have new questions that come up, you need clarification, I think, please put it into the chat box. And throughout the webinar, I'll be kind of monitoring that and consolidating questions and trying to do our best to make sure that we get everything addressed for you guys today. And then if you need further clarification of anything at the end, you'll please just go ahead and let us know that. And so with that, we're going to be, I'm going to introduce Garrett Kelly. He's our Director of Operations and Strategy for Swimply. And I'm going to turn it on over to him to get us started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome again. I'm the voice you've heard a few times, maybe since you've joined. But as Shannon said, I am the Director of Operations and Strategy at Swimply. What that means for your sake is, for operations, I run the customer support and trust and safety teams. Strategy is internal biz ops strategy, like goal setting frameworks, core values, roadmap building, prioritization, things like that. So for this webinar, what I wanted to take the time to address and intro and invite you all into is recognition that the summer months were at times confusing or frustrating. App experiencing some bugs, some features that were surprising to some folks, and looking for clarity and communication from us to help ease some of those concerns and address some of those frustrations. And I know a lot of that communication could have been quicker and more forthcoming and more transparent. And so in an effort to move in that direction and create more of a cohesive partnership between Swimply and our hosts, we want to start doing these webinars more and start being more active on social media. So as we see some of these questions or confusion points pop up, we're able to respond quicker and then host these webinars if there needs to be a bigger conversation. So in recognition of that, we have Michael and Alex with us, who are going to talk about some of those specific things that have been brought up over the summer. I'd like to first introduce Michael, our head of growth and data, to talk about the search algorithm in particular.
That's good. Shannon, do we want to jump straight to that section?
Yes, please. Garrett, do you have that? Thank you.
I think it went backwards. There we go.
Cool. Awesome. So pleasure meeting all of you, and thanks for the introduction, Garrett. My name is Michael. This is actually my first time ever talking on a webinar, so I might be awful. Please withhold judgment and give me some constructive feedback at the end. Always greatly appreciated, like everything we do. And I'll try to get to all of the points that I can within the time frame that we have. Obviously, some of these questions were pre-submitted, and we'll be dealing with some of those. Also, just try to take a step back and go over more broadly what we're trying to accomplish here by making these algorithm changes. And Gary and Alex can also talk to some of the things that we have coming up that will help alleviate some of these concerns going forward, as well as some changes that we're making on our end as well. So the first and foremost is, why did the search function algorithm change? And there's a lot to talk about here, quite a lot, just in terms of how this business is evolving and how we need to kind of create a platform that helps curate between guests and hosts. Ultimately, our role as a marketplace is to ensure that whenever a guest comes to the platform, they can find the pool that is right for them as quickly as possible, that they can book that, and that they can have a successful experience, and that host can get have a good experience on their end and ultimately earn the most money. And so making sure that we're upholding that mission, that we're really focusing on being that liquid marketplace, that platform that can consistently best match guests and hosts. We started to run into a lot of issues this summer in particular, as Swimply hit a scale that it's never seen before. We've had great growth year over year and continuing into the summer overall on the platform. Tons of new users, tons of new pools on the platform. And what we started to hit is some of the limits of the previous ways that we were doing things, how we were sorting pools, how we were running and managing this marketplace. Generally, that was leading to poorer and poorer guest and host experiences. For example, a large amount of guests were coming onto the system, very first time, excited to hear about Swimply, very engaged, very eager to find a pool they wanted to book, but they were finding that all of the pools that they were seeing when they first landed on the page were 2 or 3 times more expensive than what they anticipated or what they wanted. In fact, that feedback that pools have consistently kind of increased in price and has priced a lot of the market out has been something that we've gotten consistently through every guest interaction, every guest feedback survey that we've ever done, that they say that this has been just a consistent pain point for them. But we also know that price is not the only determining factor. There's obviously a lot of things that make a Swimply experience compelling from the guest standpoint. Different pools for different use cases, different scenarios that people want to book a pool for, their own different reasons for swim. And so how do we make a search algorithm that can accommodate all of those different preferences, that help dispel any of the noise from the system and really focus on the aspects of a pool that people want in the right combination? And we'll talk a little bit about some of the insights there and some of the takeaways that we hope to communicate better going forward. But the overall reason why we made these changes was to create a more liquid marketplace so that we could better connect guests and hosts to increase overall engagement and bookings on the platform. We have seen some preliminary success in doing so. I suspect that this is really just the tip of it and that we can go a lot further here. And we will, again, as I get into some of the details in the next slide, talk a little bit about what this means and how we look to better equip this, both on the guest side, but particularly on the host side, by giving you all the information that you all need to understand how to optimize these listings and how to make them the most compelling experience on the guest end as well, and some of the learnings that we've had so far. But the overall goals were definitely to increase the overall amount of interaction engagement on that marketplace in and of itself. Why did it need to be done during the peak season? This is the only time we have to actually learn and understand from the guest perspective, especially as we have these new influxes of guests and pools coming in, which features, which aspects of a pool are most compelling in what circumstances. As I'm sure all of you can appreciate and that we've seen throughout all of our markets, each and every market behaves very differently. And even within each and every market, the types of pools, the types of experiences that guests are looking for change radically. If you take Los Angeles, for example, Los Angeles is a huge area. We span from Santa Monica, the Inland Empire, the Hollywood Hills, all the way down to Long Beach. Each and every one of these neighborhoods and every one of these submarkets has very distinct things that each and every person's looking for when they come into the platform. And so some people might be willing to pay a lot more for a Beverly Hills house that's overlooking a beautiful sunset across Los Angeles, that has a great hot tub, that has great amenities, that has a great host experience. Folks in Pasadena might be a little bit more price sensitive. They might forego some of the luxury amenities, some of those experiences to opt something a little bit more affordable and family friendly. Maybe they really care about features like having a shallower end for their children to swim in, or having a water slide or pool toys available for the kids as well. And so each of these areas too has a distinct set of differences that people are looking for when it comes to a pool, when it comes to booking not just a place to swim, but an experience to have with your friends, with your families in that moment of time. And again, this can vary market by market. Los Angeles, we definitely see a lot of families, a lot of young families. Nashville, we see a lot of bachelorette parties, a lot of social gatherings, a lot of interactions with friends. But even within a market, it can vary substantially and meaningfully place to place and from guest to guest. And so our job is to effectively curate all of that as much as we possibly can, ensuring that each individual guest comes in is able to find that perfect pool, perfect experience for them with the least amount of friction through that funnel as possible. Can we go to the next slide, please? And so what we're looking to do here and what we've kind of learned so far during the summer is really nail down those key aspects of a pool, not just a pool in general, but a pool in a specific location at a given point in time. The main finding that we've had so far is actually just how complicated and how meaningful each and every component can be, pool by pool, listing by listing, and how all of these different components can really interact with each other. I gave an example, for example, of a luxury pool in the Hollywood Hills. That same pool, if you take that same exact type of pool, that same exact price, that same exact vibe and amenities, and you place that in Culver City, might not do as well. That same pool in Long Beach might do even worse. And so it's not just about what amenities, what aspects of the pool, what the price point is, but where it is and what are those pools nearby and what experiences are they offering, what is the kind of competition in the area, but also what do guests specifically from your area look for and want more than anything else. All of these things are very highly contextual. And so if you gave me 5 different listings right now or 10 different listings, I would probably have 5 or 10 different sets of recommendations for each and every one based on the data that we have. And so what we're trying to do is, knowing that how individual, how specific, how many of these features are so resonant within a certain time of place, how do we begin to communicate that back to you all so that you all can know, okay, on average, these are pool attributes I need to focus on, but in particular for my listing, I need to focus on X, Y, and Z to create that most compelling experience for guests, all the way from the people who are viewing your listing in the first place to the people that are going through your pricing page, understanding your amenity fees, your per guest fees, to the people that check out and end up having that great experience at your pool. One of the things that makes Swimply inherently difficult, more than most marketplaces, more than most different types of businesses, is that we're not running a series of franchises like McDonald's, right? You go to a McDonald's, each and every McDonald's is the same exact experience, more or less, place by place, maybe a little variation in the menu, maybe a little variation in how clean or how well run it is. But the whole point of the McDonald's experience is to have something super consistent that each and every town you go to, you know exactly what you're getting. Swimply couldn't be further from the truth. I think this is actually the superpower and one of the things that makes us really compelling and is something that we critically need and benefit from having such invested and engaged hosts, is that each and every Swimply experience is very distinct from one another. I've been to probably 10, 20 Swimplys over the past few weeks alone. Each and every one in terms of the pool was very different. Each and every one in terms of the host was very different. Some great, some not, some wonderful in different ways. Some of them were very caring, coming out to meet me, introducing me to the pool. Some made it very clear they wanted to give me that privacy and just let me enjoy my time on my own, but made sure I felt supported each and every step of the way throughout there. And so to be able to communicate all of these different bespoke differences, it's kind of like, if not not a McDonald's, but operating your own coffee shop. For each and every coffee shop that I go to nowadays, radically different than the next. Some will take me 20 minutes to get a cup of coffee that's bespoke and hand poured and everything else. If I go to that coffee shop with my father, he'll tell me, why are we waiting 20 minutes for a cup of coffee? I want something quick, cheap, and easy, and I want it right now. Radically different types of experiences that people are seeking for, even for the same product, even for the same end of the day unit that they're trying to rent, to buy, to purchase, etc. And so what we need to do on our end, and I think this is the most important learning for us throughout the experimentation we have done, is surface those things most specific to your listing that will be the most compelling things to highlight, to emphasize, to work on. This is something Alex, our head of engineering, will speak to in a little bit about how we plan developing those feedback loops and those communications back to the host so that each and every host knows exactly how to cater to the demand in their area, especially compared to the other units of supply at other pools nearby that can also serve these customers. And so there's a lot of things that I could rattle off as important. Obviously, pricing is very important. Quality amenities, the responsiveness of the host to each and every inquiry, not just the guests that end up booking, but any guest that submits an inquiry. The quality of the photographs of bathroom access, having instant book enabled. All these things remain consistently important, and we do see all of these things translating into more compelling guest offerings, and we see guests seek these items out. Ratings as well, obviously very important. Definitely something that people seek for. People want that 5-star rating and they want that consistently, but it's not the only thing in their mind when they go to book a pool or when they go to check out a reservation for their spend the day with their friends or family. And so again, it all comes back to the fact that each and every pool is going to have different strengths and different weaknesses. It's our job as a team here to surface those back to the host so that you can take the most control and most ownership of your own listing. Understand where people are falling off when they come to see your listing. Are they falling off immediately when they see the photos? Are they getting through to the amenity screen and saying, hey, there's a huge holiday fee here that I wasn't anticipating. I no longer want to book this listing. Are they getting through the guest count and seeing that for the size of guests and the party that they want, that is just too expensive? Are they getting to the amenities screen again and seeing, hey, actually, this doesn't have the things that I was expecting from this listing? Or are they getting all the way to the checkout screen and just deciding, you know, at the end of the day, for all of the value that I'm getting here, this makes a lot of sense and I definitely want to continue with this host, but I never hear back from the host, or the host cancels on me and I end up not even being able to book. Each and every one of those points plays now a major impact in how the ranking will be done going forward. We will show listings to the guests by time and by location that are most likely to result in a completed booking for that guest when they come to the website. So making sure that they're always having a consistent experience throughout that funnel, that they're getting the information that they need and want, and making sure that they're able to better find those hosts that can make sure that they won't even just complete the listing, but have a great experience at the end of that. That's all going to be the predominant focus going forward, ensuring that we show the listings to guests that will generate the greatest amount of conversion and engagement from them. Because at the end of the day, again, going back to our main objective of changing search in the first place, we are trying to create the quickest marketplace for you to find the best possible listing, the best possible pool and experience for you, no matter who you are, no matter what your use case is, no matter what your background is. Making sure that we find the perfect pool for you is exactly what we're trying to do here, and trying to give that feedback back to hosts and making sure that we are doing our part as a company to make that very clear to both guests and hosts is something that we haven't done well so far, that we absolutely want to do a lot better going forward. And again, Alex can speak to some of those points that we're investing in reflection of all of this. So I'll leave it there. I know there's questions a little bit later on that I'm happy to address in more detail. I'm actually happy to go through this now. Shannon, whatever you think is best in terms of talking about questions now or going through Alex's points, only because I think some of Alex's points will help address this as well.
I think that sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. So I'm Alex. I'm the Director of Engineering. Before I get started into some of those line items, I did want to answer a couple quick questions from the chat. This experiment did go live, or I should say the change in search went live around the beginning of August. And so if you saw a drop off in revenue anytime prior to that, it has nothing to do with our change in our search algorithm itself. That might have just been the market dynamics coming into play. Regarding drop off in revenue as far as after Labor Day weekend, if this is your first season on Swimply, it's very common for that Labor Day weekend for really being the last hurrah in North America for us. And so that's probably in the reason why you're seeing that drop off, or it's across the board. That's what we're seeing based off of a multitude of factors related towards schools, related towards weather, and so on. So I just want to have that dropped off, have that information dropped in there before I really kicked off the rest of my conversation. Next slide. It's really just the roadmap stuff. So what I'll be doing is kind of talking about like what we have planned over the course of the next 6 months, 9 months, as we start to really prepare for the next season. I just want to say first and foremost that as host for the platform, it's really important that we make sure that you are successful in being able to manage your listing. I think it's pretty obvious that for the last couple years, you've kind of suffered through utilizing our calendar tool, trying to manage your availability of your listing, the constant requests to allow minimum booking hours, so the amount of minimum hours required to book your pool or book your listing. Those problems are hopefully being rectified pretty soon. We're currently in the process of rebuilding that entire infrastructure from the ground up about how we handle our availabilities. Part of that relates to making your listing more easily searchable in our search experience based off of your pool actually showcasing its proper availability, actually be able to be bookable and be booked without running into, oh, it's not available at this time. We have constant requests as to having your availability in your calendar be mapped out to third-party tools like Apple Calendar or Google Calendar. We're approaching those third-party integrations as well. And so we hope to be able to provide a completely new experience for that, most likely sometime around Q1. As far as how well can your listing be optimized to show up higher in search and to be able to optimize your listing to have an overall better experience for users who are trying to choose that listing they want to go to. We've heard plenty of feedback around like the amount of transaction information regarding about how we only really show per year or all time, or per month or for all time. It's pretty lackluster. One of the things that we're approaching is a complete new feature set around host performance analytics, around how can you as a host improve your listing, especially as towards optimizing for our search experience, as well as optimizing to provide as good of information as possible to sell your listing to a potential customer. So whether or not it's grading your photos, whether or not it's price suggestions based off of the market that you're in and based off the amenities you provide, based off the size of your pool, etc. Our goal is to be able to provide insights to help optimize from that realm, as well as to be able to give you some historical information as to how many impressions are for your listing, how often are people clicking into your listing, what's your booking ratios, what's the average value of the bookings that are coming into your listings, and so on. And so we have a wide variety of things planned for that avenue. And again, the expectation for that, it should be somewhere around sometime Q1 or early Q2. Finally, one of the things that we've been trying to approach around pricing, and we've heard this a couple times around, people want to host a party and they're constantly having to negotiate with me because the price per guest fee scales to a rate of which it's unpalatable to some users. what we're trying to do moving forward is to give our hosts more control as to how they actually gauge the pricing for their pool. With that, we're going to actually define price tier bands. So you'll be able to actually define a price for your pool from 1 to 5 guests, 6 to 10 guests, 11 to 20, and so on. You'll be able to have control over what those values are. And it's a completely opt-in feature set for now. And so if you prefer to continue to be within the base hourly rate with a per guest fee after X number of guests, you can continue to facilitate that, and we will continue to facilitate that at Swimply. However, it's been something that's been very much so requested as far as trying to deal with those large parties. So again, that's a feature set that we're expecting to actually launch sometime early Q1, maybe even late Q4. So as far as supply side / host side aspects of the business, those are the major feature sets that we expect to really see a significant impact for you all. We have also a host of feature sets that hopefully are geared around actually improving the overall product stability. I know that over the summer, we've dealt with a wide variety of bugs and problems, and with us changing our reservation management system and so on. We actually just launched a new feature set around allowing swimmers to make change requests without having to explicitly require host approval. But that was also in an effort to reduce the overall effort on the host side, as well as to rectify a lot of problems around those payments not always going through properly. And so that should hopefully rectify a lot of those problems. But we're all constantly monitoring those feature sets and constantly monitoring a ton of different avenues as far as reporting. And so we'll be on the lookout to see if there are any problems with that. But as far as it's concerned, I think that's about it that really affects the host side.
Okay, thank you, Alex. All right, I've been just kind of scanning through the chats, and like I said, we do have a slide with some pre-submitted questions that we will go through. Some of these have been addressed, but if you need any elaboration, we will do our very best to get that addressed. But the one thing I do want to say before we jump into that, because I've been seeing Crail's messages on here, I want to be completely, forthright in the fact that we completely acknowledge that the communication around these changes to the search algorithm was not good. And I just want you to know that all of us are fully committed to improving communication and making sure that we do a better job of letting you all know ahead of time when there's going to be changes to affect your business like that, whether it be through the avenue of the Facebook group page, which I know most of you are on, a host email newsletter, doing more webinars like this. I really do want you all to trust the fact that we are going to do better, and we do understand your frustration around that, and we will do better. So I just want to kind of get that acknowledged right off the bat, because I know it's justifiable to know what to understand your frustrations. So, okay, so Alex, do you want to kind of go through these questions and do the best for anything that we haven't covered yet, and then we'll go from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start off with number one. So why does the Swimmers View always default to Los Angeles, and even when selecting near me in the Northern California area? So that highly depends upon what version of the application you're on. The newest versions of the application hopefully do not actually exhibit that same problem anymore. If you have your current location set, it should always default to where your current location is at, no matter whether or not you close the application or not. That was definitely a problem that had existed for quite some time, but with our most recent changes to search on the app side, it shouldn't be a problem anymore. But the reason why it defaults to Los Angeles, if you do not provide a location set, it's just our largest market. And so we have to default it to somewhere if we do not have that, if we don't have any explicit information. Why isn't my poll showing up when I search my own zip code? Other polls and other zips show up before mine. So about why your other polls show up before yours, I think has a lot to do with obviously the search algorithm and how that defines your listing versus other listings. But as to why other zip codes may show up, I'll kind of describe how our search works in a nutshell. Whenever you enter in an address, a zip code, city, etc., what we get at the end of the day is a latitude and longitudinal point from Google. We pop that down and we create a circle around it. So there's a search filter value that says distance, and that can be anywhere from 5 miles up to 50. And also on the app side, it correlates to your zoom ratio on your phone. That value effectively showcases every poll or every listing within that circle. So if you search a specific zip code, Google returns to us that specific lat long that they define as that center point for the zip code. And if you set your search distance to 25 miles, it's going to actually search larger than that zip code. That's currently how our search works today. We are approaching some different methods as to how we want to handle search, where it's more like geographical basis. So if you search a zip code, it only returns to you that zip code. However, that's not something that we currently have on the docket for now, but it's definitely something that we're exploring. As far as number 3 is concerned, that's more along the line of the search algorithm itself. I don't know if you'd like to touch on that at all, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, 1 minute. My screen just shut off. So this one, I would say, like, there's a few different specifics here that I think will vary listing by listing. So it is definitely very listing heavy as to which specific attributes of a listing are leading it to go higher or lower in search. I'll say too that this will change meaningfully based on what's been happening in the past and what will be happening in the future. So in the past, as Hot announced, there was 3 distinct buckets, ones which were based on sort, or which some were purely like randomized that mixed listings up, some that were based on the ratings itself. What we've been able to work with from the variations that we've been able to do over the summer is an algorithm that is more tailored towards showing the ones that have the highest booking probability. So if I show this listing to a guest, what is the likelihood they will see it, they will click on it, they will go all the way through the funnel of that listing and ultimately end in a successful booking. That going forward will be the predominant case of how listings are ranked. There will always be variations as we go along, and this will be true now and forever, that sometimes there will be buckets of users, some users that experience a different search ranking than others. We are constantly trying new variations of this, constantly trying to learn what users want the most out of a listing. As we were talking about before, it can be very complex, not just in terms of the different attributes they want, but when and why they want them, for which use cases, for which time periods, in which areas of a market or even within a market. So it's something that we're constantly trying to learn ourselves. Again, what we're trying to invest in for number 3 is a more rigorous feedback loop to you all, so that you all can know exactly all of these health metrics across the different points of the listing. How many people are seeing my listing and clicking into it? How many people are clicking into it but falling off because they saw the price was too high on the amenity screen? How many people make it all the way to checkout and ultimately submit or not submit? How many people do submit but never hear back because we didn't have instant booking enabled, and so they fall off and aren't able to make another booking themselves? How many people go through the whole process, make the booking, but end up with a cancellation and never are able to actually experience that pool or take a swim? So all of these things will be fundamentally important, and how do we communicate each and every one in terms of feedback is exactly what Alex highlighted in terms of developing that better feedback and analytics report for you all to utilize to truly be the owners of your listing and know each and every point where guests are engaging and where they're falling off. But in terms of the control that we have in terms of getting those listings higher, those remain, while it is specific pool by pool, the general trends remain the same. Lower prices are absolutely a critical factor in driving more demand. That is, like I said at the very beginning, the number 1 complaint from all of guests on the platform, both existing and returning, that prohibits them, that stops them from making a booking. They believe, generally speaking, bookings on Swimply are much too high for them to support that first time, that second time, that third time. So working ways to, that will always generate higher amounts of conversion, higher amounts of demand on that side. Things that have to do with making the booking as easy as possible, making sure that hosts are very responsive, that they're responding to questions from guests, that they're helping them address concerns, that they're getting back to their booking submission requests in a timely manner, making sure there aren't a lot of hidden fees tacked on throughout that amenity process, throughout the checkout process, making it so that guests with large bookings can be accommodated, can figure out a way forward with the host where it's not too radically expensive for them to afford. All of these things are very important. So it's a lot of the same things that we've consistently said as a company have known. Ratings, again, very naturally, very important, just not the only thing in there. And so this goes back to the products that we want to invest in over the winter, and hopefully, as Alex said, around the Q2, Q1 timeline of making sure that you all are fully in control of all of the information of your listing, and you know exactly how to address each and every point to maximize that overall amount of conversion from the guest side coming in.
Thank you, Michael. It looks like we're asking for a lot of clarification about ratings. And I know you just mentioned, ratings are always important but not the only component based on the feedback we've gathered so far. Is there anything else that you can clarify as far as how ratings will play into this going forward?
Yeah, so ratings are one of the major factors that we use to understand whether guests are likely to engage with a listing or not. It is one of the key indicators that guests are very eager to engage with this listing. It's one of the things that drives the most amount of that top of funnel engagement, which we mean viewing the listing in the list and actually clicking through to engage with it further. But like I was saying, there's a lot of other frictions that get introduced between that user first being interested in that pool and then ultimately checking out. Again, like, does the pricing make sense within that funnel to make sure that they have the right price for their amount of guests that they're looking for? Are there hidden fees tacked on in between there? Are there other pools nearby that have similar ratings, or maybe a 4.9 instead of a 5.0, but a much more compelling price for their that time, for that use case, for that overall amount of guests? And so, yes, ratings are an important factor in here, and they do distinctly benefit hosts in terms of getting more demand engagement. It's just that when people are shopping around, they might be willing to go from a 5.0 to a 4.9, sometimes even to a 4.8, if that makes a compelling offer for them in terms of the amenities they're getting, in terms of the price that they're getting, and in terms of the overall responsiveness from the host. So important factor, still going to be very important in driving guest engagement, not the only factor that guests care about.
And can you or Alex speak to the questions that we're getting in regards to filtering or sorting by rating?
Absolutely.
I can go into that a little bit. So the reason why we do not have an explicit filter for ratings as of today was, one, that it wasn't ever prioritized because we were changing a lot of things related towards our overall search algorithm itself. But two, we haven't really defined how we would like to support searching by and sorting or filtering by that rating value. If you look at Airbnb as a good example, they do not actually offer you the ability to filter out like down to specific rating value. What they do instead is offer something like a superhost badge that usually is indicative of a very high rating. Also usually is indicative of like X number of bookings, X number of reviews, and so on. So we have been tossing around the idea about how we would like to actually approach that instead of releasing something and having to backtrack or change the logic a lot. So we've actually been going through some user experience research around that, and it's something that we are working through, but it's not something that we have immediately set up to be released just yet.
Okay, thank you for that, Alex. Also, I'm seeing
and I'd like to note, we never had a filter for ratings, for what it's worth. It's never existed since I've been here at the company.
but it is something that we're looking into and examining as an option, and certainly something that we'll keep the host up to date on as we, whatever direction that ends up going. And I'm also seeing a theme here in regards to asking us doing better at asking for host feedback. I did want to let everyone know that we are in the process of rolling out a brand new host ambassador program. And part of that is that we're going to have hosts identified in all the top 30 markets. And those will be a representative for each of our largest markets, and really be able to be the liaison between Swimply and the host community, and allow us a better way to be able to have a good line of communication both directions. So being able to, where the host ambassadors would be the voice of that section of the host community. So that way that feedback can be brought back to us as kind of the host body. And then we can also do a better job of having a channel of communication back to the host community as well. So these are all things, that I'm on the Facebook page all the time. I'm hearing you. I'm sharing your concerns and frustrations and questions with Swimply leadership. They hear you, and everybody is committed to do better. And we are going to be putting a system in place to do all the things that you guys are mentioning here. I'm trying to see, Alex, did you see anything else in here? I know one of the things that I was seeing a couple people saying is how from these different search algorithms that we've done, how can we glean some information for the host that would be useful? For example, like Teresa was saying, how do I know what the suite price point is in my area? Are those things that we can glean from this to be able to pass on to the host, to be able to help them with their listings? And I know, Michael, the other one was about clicking, keeping track of click ratios.
Yeah, well, I can touch on both of those, Shannon.
Right. Thank you very much.
So as I was talking about earlier, so that host performance analytics information is going to include click-through rate. So it's going to look at how often is your listing actually shown to the user. So those are the impressions. We're going to have the number of clicks that your listing has, and effectively that click-through rate is so how often are people actually seeing your listing and looking further into it. And then finally, how often are people actually booking your poll? So you can actually see how well is your poll converting in your actual market in comparison to how people are actually seeing it. And so so that was like the first line item. And what was the other one explicitly? But like how that sweet spot for pricing, right? So one of the parts around that's not only about like historical information, but also suggestive information. So we're going to have tips on based off of the pricing in your market, based off the amenities you provide, based off of the type of poll you have, etc. We're going to have suggested tips to make your listing more attractive to people in your market, and to optimize based off of how the search experience works. And so we're going to have all the information as part of that new host performance analytics tool. And that's going to, again, be going live to host sometime around Q1.
Great. Thank you, Alex. And so Heath, I think that just answered your question as well, that we are going to be looking at providing the feedback that we're receiving from all of these different search options to give you guys better analytics for your area. So I think, did any of you, Alex, Michael, Garrett, see anything that we haven't covered yet on this chat before we see if anybody needs?
Well, there were, I know that there were other, like number 4, review of 5 stars, put me in the top of my area. I guess that was kind of covered. How can I make my listing more attractive? Again, like in the short run, prior to the host performance analytics, obviously, one is that feel free to reach out to our polls team over here to have a conversation with them around like maybe your images, talk about pricing. We have a more manual process right now that you can kind of have those communications with. But in the short run, if you do not feel like having the conversation with someone at Swimply, just look around your market itself and see how your listing really compares. You can, the eye test will go a long way, but we really hope to provide, again, that more data-based approach as to how to improve your listing with that feature set.
Okay.
But that's it. I'm good.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think that we've gone through everything in the chat. Does anybody need any other clarification on anything that has been said here today that we haven't covered?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sure,
please.
go ahead, Teresa.
Okay, so I didn't hear the answer to my question. I mean, I heard the study and everything, but not an actual specific answer. What is the price point that's the sweet spot for my area? I mean, you got the results from the study and the test. Is there any way that you can release some of that information to us to make our listings better?
So I think I saw this question come up a lot, and I think what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, I just want to make sure we address it clearly for you, because I think this is on top of mind for a lot of hosts, is what are those, of everything we learned and we talked about, what Michael and Alex mentioned around price, around location, around amenities, around availability, types of pool, shallow depths, etc. Knowing all of that in your area, what are the specific things that we recommend you look at and address or change on your profile or account in order to maximize the opportunity to get more bookings? Yeah, all right, thumbs up, that's a good sign usually. So I know, guys, I'll pass this on to Michael or Alex because they're definitely the tech experts. But I know we've had talks in the past about like a host welcome packet or some type of, I know Shannon also mentioned sort of a like regular, what'd you call it, Shannon? I wanted to keep using the word webinar, but like a newsletter, where as these things come up, we can kind of come up with optimizations as we bring on new hosts, but also as things change on our end, not forgetting tenured hosts as a part of that onboarding and optimization experience. So Michael or Alex, would either of you like to take this one on and address that one?
Yeah, I can at least give a partial answer here, and I do, apologize. Not knowing your personal listing, exactly where you're listed and the attributes of it, I'm not going to give you the most satisfactory answer in the world. But the reason why this is a particularly difficult question to ask without knowing all those contextual details is because even within the same area, pools can have different prices and pull in meaningfully similar or different guest amounts. For example, we're in the Hollywood area right now. If I look on my app, there are 10 different pools with 10 different price points, all of which are compelling in their own way. There are some pools that are just large, open, above in-ground pools, no frills backyard, like very nicely kept, like well managed, well maintained, but nothing like, all that eye-popping. Go for $40 an hour. That is a great price for that pool. They have some heat that you can add on optionally. It's a great place to go just for a quick swim during the weekend where I don't have to worry about entertaining a lot of guests that I am bringing over or otherwise. Great, reliable, lower cost pool. There's also a pool in the hills. I'm looking at it right now, Casadino in the Hollywood Hills. That's this beautiful pool in this mansion that has a movie theater right next to it. You can rent a popcorn machine. You can really make it an all-out experience. That one is a little bit more expensive at $75 an hour. However, that is still one of the more popular pools on the platform. So even though there's that $35 an hour price gap between those two pools, both relatively equidistant to where I live, I can get to both in about the same time. They're very different experiences, very different types of pools, very different types of listings, and two different price points that people are willing to pay at. And so given how contextually important all of these elements are, it's not just there's one single price point that will work. There is one price point that works best for a given type of pool with a given type of amenities, with a given type of host and a given location and time. That is why it's so complicated to give these like blanket recommendations. Obviously, lower prices are always more compelling, but what we need to invest in is that better feedback loop to you all so that you know specifically for your pool, the things that make your pool very special, how do those all add up into a different recommended price based on the pool attributes, based on the people around you, based on where the demand is coming from and what demand is looking for in your specific area in and of itself. I don't know enough about your specific listing to be able to say that off the cuff. I will say too, while we wait for that product enhancement to be out there, there are always pool optimization experts here at Swimply, and they are very eager to work with hosts to work on these aspects of their listing from their own previous experience, from their own understanding of these marketplaces. Please reach out to them. They reach out to hosts all the time. They never get a response. If they find a host that is readily willing to engage with them, they are thrilled beyond belief, and they would love to work with you on this.
Awesome. I need a name.
I can connect you. Let's make sure to collect your email after this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And yeah, we'll reach out and get your email for the one-on-one. And I had a follow-up there, kind of, I wanted to double down on the question a little bit is, I think what I'm hearing from some hosts here, and then some of the things I've heard explained as the algorithm, is there's two pieces to this. There's sort of fixed things that hosts can do that apply to all hosts, like good photos or response rate or reviews. And then there's the variable things that are very much experiential about size, amenities, and different things. So is there anything fixed that we can recommend everyone focus on here? Otherwise, reach out to our host care team or look out for those emails from them and schedule time to optimize specific to the variable components.
Great. Thank you, Garrett. And I do want to, go ahead.
That was a question. Yeah, that was a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shannon.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm also trying to monitor the chat too and make sure we cover everything with the last few minutes that we have. I'm so sorry.
Sure. Sorry, I'll give a quick response. The things that we've always said are true remain true. So price lower, always a great thing. No matter what else, it always drives more demand. Ratings higher, again, a very good thing. And I don't want to discount the impact of ratings. I know we've talked a lot about, hey, we've moved away from the 5-star ratings being the end all be all. They are still an important factor. I forget the exact statistic off of my head, but each point of a rating, if you're going from like 4.8 to 4.9 to 5.0, generally increases the likelihood that someone is going to engage in your listing 10 to 15%. Don't quote me on that exact one. That's the one I remember looking at the last. But it's non-trivial. It is very important. It is a huge driver for guest demand. It is just not the only driver. One of the things we did see at the beginning of summer was that hosts that were consistently ranked on the top of the algorithm, that were always showing up when you looked at LA or any of these big markets. These were the hosts that were increasing the prices the most, while other hosts on the platform were decreasing or keeping their prices the same. Those hosts that were putting in the effort to decrease their prices to enhance their listing never got any benefit from that by putting all these adjustments and enhancements into their own listings, because they could never possibly catch up to that top of the list, or they could never dig themselves out of the hole of being a brand new host on the platform and competing with someone who's been here for 3 years and has accumulated reviews over that point in time. It also didn't account for the fact that host responsiveness does not play into account in ratings a lot of the time. A great example of this, there's this beautiful mansion in the hills that I've always wanted to swim at. It has a perfect 5-star review. It's actually at like $40 an hour. It's an insane price. It looks incredible. Whenever I go to request that booking, I never hear a response. I've requested that pool maybe 10 or 15 different times. It's keeping its 5-star rating. It's also, in the old world, keeping its spot at the top of the list. No guest was ever able to book that in the past few months, and that is a detriment to our marketplace. That is making it so that we are luring guests in, we're giving them a promise of this great listing and never allowing them to actually realize it. That is a lot of the aspects too. So when it comes to the fixed things, they are responsiveness, they are price, they are definitely ratings, they are making your checkout experience as seamless as possible, not including hidden fees or putting special caveats and rules within that are unexpected or more outlandish. Making sure that you're working with those guests to reschedule if a conflict comes up, if there's something broken with your pool or unexpected maintenance, taking that proactive approach of not just canceling on them, but trying to rework something out with them. All of these things, anything that leads to a guest seeing your listing, converting through, making that booking and having a great experience on the other end, those are the things that we prioritize throughout the funnel. And those will remain consistently true listing to listing, no matter what the nuances are.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you following up with my follow-up to the question, and hopefully Teresa and everybody that helps answer your questions. Now, I know we're at about time, and I know there's still more questions coming in, and there was add-ons to Michael's response. So, what we're going to do is record all the questions here. If there was some specific request for a one-on-one, we're going to try to feed that to the optimization team that we have on our supply host side and see if we could reach out and find your account and schedule that time with you. Of the other questions, we're going to compile them and still take them into account. Some of it was listed as like feedback. Like I just saw the one about $100 icon blocks my pool in the map when zoomed at a certain distance. We're going to take those into consideration and feedback as like recommendations to take a look into. We might not respond to every one of them, but part of the webinars we do want to have is like as a part of the engagement is if you do have recommendations, feedback, we take that, we review it and see if it makes sense to apply to the roadmap amongst the other priorities we've already established. So I want to kind of pass to Shannon with closing on that, knowing we're at about that hour mark, and let her kind of decide how we take it from here and how we close out.
That's great. I was going to suggest the same thing, that we'll go through these. Anything that did not get addressed, we will gather up some information and get it out to you guys either directly if it's a very specific concern or question about your own listing, or if it's a general one, I'll put something together for the Facebook page. I'm seeing a lot of in here about doing an advisory group, and that is exactly what that host ambassador program will do, that we're in the process of putting together. And I see some people that want to have one-on-ones. I will definitely get that coordinated with the pool team, like Garrett said. So I think that we are at time at this point, and I just want to thank you all again so much for being on with us. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate the questions. And I do see also that a lot in chat is just general feedback that I will be sure to log and make sure we all have that in the appropriate departments that they apply to. So again, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for being great hosts. And thank you for your patience while we work to do things better for you. Okay, I hope you all have a great night, and I'm going to go ahead and stop recording and in the Zoom, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.